"You're smart enough to make it on your own," they said when they kicked me out at 18. Meanwhile, they paid for my sister's full ride to Harvard. 10 years later, their company was failing, only to realize their biggest competitor was owned by me. Their faces turned pale. My father's words still echo in my head as I stand in the lobby of what used to be his company. At 28, I'm here to attend the board meeting that will determine the fate of Carter Enterprises, not as the kicked-out daughter, but as the CEO of their biggest competitor. My name is Lily Carter, and 10 years ago my parents made it clear where I stood in the family hierarchy. It was the day after my high school graduation. I had just finished my valedictorian speech, my acceptance letter to Stanford clutched hopefully in my hand. That's when they told me they'd be using my college fund to send my younger sister, Sophie, to Harvard instead. "Sophie needs more support than you do," my mother had said, not meeting my eyes. "She's always struggled with academics, and Harvard has been her dream. You'll figure something out, Lily. You always do." I remember standing in our kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd spent countless nights helping Sophie with her math homework, the same kitchen where I'd received my early acceptance letter. The morning sun streamed through the windows, making everything look deceptively bright and normal, even as my world crumbled around me. "But what about Stanford?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "What about my dreams? Stanford?" My father had scoffed. "Lily, be practical. We can't afford to send both of you to college, and Sophie, well, Sophie needs this opportunity more. You're resourceful. You'll find a way." Sophie had stood in the corner, examining her freshly manicured nails, a small smile playing at her lips. She'd always been their favorite, the pretty one, the social butterfly, the one who needed constant support and validation. Meanwhile, I was the reliable one, the responsible one, the one they took for granted. "You have till the end of the week to move out," my father had added, as if throwing me out was an afterthought. "We need your room for Sophie's Harvard prep tutor." That night I packed my belongings with mechanical precision, my mind already racing with plans and possibilities. They taught me one valuable lesson: I could only rely on myself. As I folded my clothes and packed my books, I made a promise not just to survive, but to thrive. I had $3,000 saved from my part-time job at the local library, a perfect GPA, and a brain that wouldn't quit. It would have to be enough. The first few months were the hardest. I found a tiny studio apartment in the roughest part of town and took 3 jobs: morning shifts at a coffee shop, afternoon receptionist at a small tech startup, and weekend work at a 24-hour diner. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, but education remained my priority. The tech startup, Digital Dynamics, became my saving grace. The CEO, Catherine Torres, noticed how I stayed late to study their coding manuals during my breaks. One evening, she called me into her office. "Lily, I've been watching you," she said, her sharp eyes evaluating me. "You've got something special. How would you like to learn while you earn?" That conversation changed everything. Catherine became the mentor I desperately needed. She taught me not just about technology and business, but about resilience and strategic thinking. Under her guidance, I learned coding, project management, and, most importantly, how to turn adversity into advantage. Meanwhile, my family's occasional social media posts kept me updated on Sophie's life at Harvard, designer clothes, sorority parties, spring breaks in Europe, all funded by what should have been my education. My parents' Facebook posts gushed about their brilliant daughter at Harvard, while I remained unmentioned, unfollowed, forgotten. But I wasn't bitter. I was building. By day, I worked my way up from receptionist to junior developer at Digital Dynamics. By night, I took online courses, earned certifications, and slowly but surely built my knowledge base. Catherine's mentorship proved invaluable. She showed me how to spot opportunities, how to network, how to think 3 steps ahead. 2 years in, I had my first breakthrough, During a late-night coding session, I discovered a way to optimize supply chain management using AI, something that could revolutionize how companies handled their logistics. Catherine didn't just encourage me to develop it, she invested in it. "This is your ticket, Lily," she said, writing out a check that made my hands shake. "Show them what you can do." With Catherine's seed money and guidance, I founded Carter Analytics. The name was deliberate. I wanted them to know exactly who I was and what I could achieve. The first year was brutal, living on ramen noodles and coffee, working 20-hour days, sleeping on an office couch. But the algorithm worked. It more than worked, it excelled. Major companies started taking notice. Our client list grew, and with it, our reputation. 5 years after being kicked out of my childhood home, I was running a successful tech company with over 50 employees. Catherine joined my board of directors, bringing her experience and connections. I never reached out to my family, and they never reached out to me. Sophie graduated from Harvard with a degree in art history and joined our father's company, Carter Enterprises, in an executive position created just for her. Their social media posts showed a perfect corporate family, father, mother, and daughter, working together to build their legacy. What they didn't see was that their legacy was already crumbling. Carter Enterprises had failed to innovate, relying on outdated systems and old relationships. Their stock prices had been steadily declining for years, but they were too proud to admit it. Sophie's expensive Harvard degree hadn't prepared her for the real challenges of business management, and my father was too set in his ways to adapt. I watched from afar as their company struggled, meticulously building my own empire. Carter Analytics expanded into artificial intelligence, machine learning, and predictive analytics. We weren't just managing supply chains anymore, we were revolutionizing how businesses operated in the digital age. Then came the opportunity I had been unconsciously preparing for all these years. Carter Enterprises' biggest client, Robertson Manufacturing, was looking for new solutions to modernize their operations. They found Carter Analytics through industry referrals, unaware of the connection. I sat across from Robertson's CEO, Thomas Robertson, in our sleek conference room, presenting our solutions with the confidence that comes from knowing you're the best at what you do. "Miss Carter," he said after my presentation, "your systems are exactly what we need. But I have to ask, any relation to Carter Enterprises?" I met his gaze steadily. "Yes, actually. Henry Carter is my father." The surprise on his face was evident. "Really?" "He's never mentioned, I'm sure he hasn't," I replied smoothly. "We haven't spoken in 10 years. That meeting led to more meetings. Robertson Manufacturing not only signed with us but also introduced us to other major players in the industry. Within months, we had acquired several of Carter Enterprises' key clients. Now, standing in the lobby of Carter Enterprises, I adjust my designer suit, a far cry from the secondhand clothes I wore when they kicked me out. The receptionist looks up at me, clearly not recognizing the name on the visitor's badge. Why would she? There are no photos of me on these walls. No mention of the other Carter daughter. "Miss Carter," she says, "the boardroom is ready for you." I nod, taking the elevator to the top floor, the same floor where my father's office is located, where he so often reminded Sophie of her destiny, to take over the family business. The irony isn't lost on me. The boardroom falls silent as I enter. My father's face goes pale, and Sophie nearly drops her phone. My mother, sitting in on the meeting as a major shareholder, looks like she's seen a ghost. "Lily," my father manages to say. "Hello, Dad," I reply, my voice steady. "I believe we're here to discuss the future of Carter Enterprises. The weight of the moment isn't in what I say, but in what remains unspoken. The prodigal daughter hasn't returned to beg for acceptance. She's here to show them exactly what they threw away." I open my laptop, ready to present our terms. 10 years ago, they thought they were casting me out into the cold. They didn't realize they were forcing me to build my own fire. Shall we begin? The boardroom at Carter Enterprises hadn't changed in 10 years. The same mahogany table dominated the space. The same oil paintings of past company presidents lined the walls, and the same air of entitled superiority hung thick in the air. But something had changed, the power dynamic. "Before we begin," my father said, attempting to regain his composure, "I believe we should discuss this conflict of interest." I smiled, opening my presentation materials. "What conflict would that be, Dad? The fact that I'm CEO of Carter Analytics, or the fact that I'm your daughter, the one you kicked out a decade ago?" Sophie shifted uncomfortably in her designer chair. She looked exactly as she had in her recent social media posts, perfectly groomed, dripping with luxury brands, and completely out of her depth. "This is a private family matter," my mother interjected, her voice tight with anxiety. "Perhaps we should clear the room." "Actually," I cut in smoothly, "this is a business meeting, and everyone here needs to hear what I'm about to say." I turned to address the board members directly. "Carter Enterprises is failing. Your quarterly reports show a 40% decline in revenue over the past 3 years. Your major clients, Robertson Manufacturing, Turner Corp., and Bradford Industries, have all terminated their contracts in favor of more innovative solutions. Solutions my company provides." The board members exchanged glances. These weren't family loyalists. They were business people watching their investments crumble. "Now," I continued, clicking to the first slide of my presentation, "I have a proposal that could save this company. Carter Analytics is prepared to acquire Carter Enterprises in a merger that would preserve jobs, stabilize the market position, and modernize operations." "Absolutely not," my father exploded, his face reddening. "This company has been in our family for 3 generations. I won't let you. Let me what, Dad? Save it?" I met his gaze steadily. "Your stubbornness, your refusal to innovate, and your insistence on putting Sophie in charge of departments she's not qualified to run have brought this company to the brink of collapse." Sophie finally found her voice. "That's not fair. I've worked hard, have you?" I turned to her. "Tell me, Sophie, what was your solution to the supply chain crisis last quarter? Because from what I hear, you suggested hiring more manual labor to track inventory." In 2025, she fell silent, her face flushing. The board members were paying close attention now, several of them taking notes. "Miss Carter," one of them spoke up, "what exactly are you proposing?" I clicked to the next slide. "A complete digital transformation. Carter Analytics would absorb Carter Enterprises, implementing our AI-driven systems across all operations. We'd retain 85% of the current workforce, retrain them on modern systems, and position the merged company as a leader in technological innovation." "And what happens to current leadership?" another board member asked, glancing at my father. "My father would be offered a position as chairman emeritus, an advisory role that honors his legacy while allowing for necessary changes." I paused, then added, "Sophie would be welcome to stay with the company, but in a position better suited to her qualifications." "This is blackmail," my mother whispered, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her fear. "No, Mom, this is business." I stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the city. 10 years ago, you all decided I wasn't worth investing in. You took my college fund, gave it to Sophie, and told me to make it on my own. Well, I did. And now I'm offering you the same chance you never gave me a way forward. The boardroom was silent as the implications sank in. My father's hands were clenched into fists, his knuckles white. Sophie was staring at her laptop screen, but I could see tears forming in her eyes. "The offer stands for 48 hours, I continued. "After that, Carter Analytics will proceed with our expansion plans, which include absorbing your remaining clients and establishing ourselves as the dominant force in this market. Your choice." "Lily," my father's voice was quiet now, almost pleading. "We're family." I turned back to face him, feeling the weight of a decade's worth of rejection and resilience. "No, Dad, we stopped being family the day you decided Sophie deserved a future, and I didn't. Now we're just business people making business decisions. I gathered my materials, preparing to leave. My team will send over the detailed proposal within the hour. I suggest you read it carefully. Your shareholders certainly will. As I walked toward the door, Sophie suddenly spoke up. Wait! How did you do it? How did you build all this? I paused, looking at my sister, really looking at her for the first time in years. Behind the perfect makeup and expensive clothes, I saw something I recognized: fear. The same fear I'd felt standing in our kitchen 10 years ago, realizing I had nothing. I did it by working harder than you've ever had to, I replied honestly. By learning from every rejection, every setback, every night I spent sleeping on an office floor because I couldn't afford rent. I did it because you, Mom, and Dad taught me the most valuable lesson of all, that I could only count on myself. The silence that followed me out of the boardroom was deafening. As I rode the elevator down to the lobby, my phone buzzed with a message from Catherine. How did it go? I smiled, typing back. Exactly as planned. They never saw it coming, just like they never saw me coming 10 years ago when they thought they were getting rid of a problem but were actually creating their biggest competition. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about rising so far above those who hurt you that they have to look up to see you. The next 48 hours would determine the fate of Carter Enterprises. But regardless of their decision, I had already won. I had built something they couldn't take away, couldn't dismiss, couldn't give to Sophie instead. I had built myself. The next 24 hours brought exactly the chaos I'd anticipated. My phone buzzed constantly with calls from board members, industry contacts, and, finally, family members trying to regain control of a situation that had long since slipped through their fingers. I sat in my office at Carter Analytics, reviewing the latest market projections, when Sophie's name flashed across my screen. After 10 years of silence, she was finally reaching out. I let it ring twice before answering. Lily, her voice was smaller than it had been in the boardroom. Can we talk, please? I checked my watch. I have 15 minutes. Where are you? I'm outside your building. Of course she was. Sophie had always been like this, acting on impulse, expecting others to accommodate her schedule. But I was curious enough to agree. Come up. Tell reception you're expected. 5 minutes later, Sophie walked into my office. Her designer outfit couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, or the way her hands trembled slightly. She looked around, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the modern decor, the view of the city that people work their entire lives to earn. This is impressive, she said, sinking into one of the chairs across from my desk. What do you want, Sophie? She flinched at my directness. I've been up all night thinking about everything about what you said in the boardroom. She paused, picking at her manicured nails, a nervous habit from childhood. You're right. I'm not qualified for my position. I never was. I leaned back, studying her. This wasn't the entitled sister I'd known. Go on. Dad, he never made me work for anything. Harvard was a joke. I barely attended classes, but they passed me anyway because of his donations. Every job I've had at the company was created for me. I don't actually know how to do anything. And you're telling me this because? Because I'm scared, she admitted, her voice cracking. The board is meeting again tonight. They're going to vote on your proposal, and I know they're going to accept it. Dad's been screaming at his lawyers all day, but there's nothing they can do. You've won. I felt a flicker of something, not quite sympathy, but understanding. This isn't about winning, Sophie. It's about business. The company is failing because of outdated practices and poor management. My proposal will save it. By getting rid of me? By putting people in positions they're qualified for, I corrected, including you, if you're willing to learn. She looked up, surprised. What do you mean? I pulled out a folder I'd prepared the night before, sliding it across the desk. A real position. Entry-level marketing associate. No special treatment, no executive title. You'd start at the bottom, learn the business properly, and advance based on merit. Sophie opened the folder with shaking hands. You'd give me a chance? After everything? I'm not giving you anything. I'm offering you an opportunity to earn something for yourself, for once. She was quiet for a long moment, reading through the job description, the salary. It's a fraction of what I make now. It's more than I made when I started when I was sleeping on an office couch, because I couldn't afford rent. The weight of those words hung between us. Finally, Sophie looked up, tears in her eyes. I never apologized for taking your college fund, for watching them kick you out. I was so caught up in getting what I wanted, I never thought about what it cost you. No, you didn't. I kept my voice neutral. But this isn't about apologies, Sophie. It's about choices. You can keep clinging to a position you don't deserve, or you can choose to earn your place. Your decision. Before she could respond, my phone buzzed a message from one of my contacts on the Carter Enterprises board. Emergency meeting called. Vote happening now. The board's meeting early, I told Sophie. You should go. She stood, clutching the folder to her chest. Lily, for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. What you've built here, it's incredible. Thank you. But I didn't build it for your pride. I built it despite your rejection. After she left, I walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. In the distance, I could see the Carter Enterprises building, where another chapter of this story was about to unfold. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my father. The board voted, he said, his voice heavy with defeat. They've accepted your proposal. I know you've won, Lily. You've taken everything I built. No, Dad, I replied. I saved everything you were destroying. The papers will be ready in the morning. He was quiet for a moment. Your mother wants to have dinner, to talk about everything. I have a company to run, I replied. Maybe in a few weeks, once the merger is complete. After hanging up, I called Catherine, who had been my rock through all of this. It's done, I told her. The board accepted. Congratulations, she said warmly. How does it feel? I thought about Sophie's visit, about my father's call, about the decade of work that had led to this moment. It feels right not because of revenge, but because it's the right business decision. And the family drama? Sophie might surprise us. She asked for a real job, one she'd have to work for. Like sister. Catherine chuckled. Maybe she's finally ready to learn from you. Maybe, I agreed, but first, we have a merger to manage. As I ended the call, I looked at the family photos still tucked away in my desk drawer, the last one taken before they kicked me out. We were all smiling, pretending to be the perfect family. Now, the pretense was gone, replaced by something raw but real. Sometimes I realized you have to lose a false family to build something true, something earned, something that can't be taken away. 6 months after the merger, I stood in the renovated lobby of what was now Carter Analytics Global. The old oil paintings had been replaced with digital displays, showing real-time company metrics. The mahogany and brass had given way to glass and steel. Change, as they say, was in the air. Sophie had surprised everyone by throwing herself into her entry-level position. She arrived early, stayed late, and asked questions that showed she was finally thinking beyond herself. Last week, she presented her first solo marketing campaign. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers truly earned. My father had taken longer to adjust. During the first month, he tried to undermine the transition, clinging to old ways and old power. But when he saw how our modernization doubled productivity in the first quarter, something shifted. Now, he actually attended the technology training sessions, sitting in the back, taking notes like a student. I was reviewing the latest quarterly reports in my office when my mother requested a meeting. She'd kept her distance during the transition, watching from the sidelines as her carefully constructed family narrative crumbled and rebuilt itself into something unexpected. Come in, I called when she knocked. She looked older than I remembered, more vulnerable without the shield of wealth and status she'd hidden behind for so long. Lily, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Have a seat. She sat, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. I've been volunteering at a women's shelter, she said, surprising me. Teaching basic business skills, helping them build resumes. It's opened my eyes to how strong women can be when they're forced to stand alone. I waited, letting her find her words. When we took your college fund, she continued, when we let you go, we thought we were doing what was best for the family. We thought Sophie needed us more. We were wrong. She pulled out an envelope and placed it on my desk. This is every penny of your college fund with interest. I've been saving it secretly. It's not about the money, I know you don't need it now. It's about acknowledging what we took from you. I picked up the envelope but didn't open it. You're right. It's not about the money. It never was. I know that now. It was about believing in you, supporting you. We failed at that. She met my eyes directly. But you succeeded anyway. You built all this without us, despite us. I did, I agreed. And that's something you can never take away. She nodded, understanding the weight of those words. Your father and I are selling the house, she said quietly. It's too big, too full of memories of who we pretended to be. We found a smaller place, something more honest. I thought about that house, about the kitchen where they shattered my dreams, about the room they gave to Sophie's tutor. Sometimes letting go is necessary for growth. Like you let go of us? I didn't let go, Mom. You pushed me away. I just decided to fly instead of fall. She wiped away a tear. Catherine Torres, she was the mother I should have been to you, wasn't she? She was the mentor I needed when I had no one else. She taught me that success isn't about what you're given. It's about what you build. My mother stood, straightening her shoulders. Well, you've built something remarkable here, she hesitated. If you're willing, I'd like to build something too, a relationship. A real one this time, not based on expectations or appearances. I considered her words, thinking about Sophie's transformation, about my father's late-blooming humility, about this moment of vulnerability from a woman who had spent decades hiding behind perfection. That would take time, I said finally, and real work from all of you. We're ready, she said. Sophie's learning, your father's trying, and I'm finally seeing clearly. I stood, walking to the window overlooking the city. In the reflection, I could see both of us, mother and daughter, past and present, broken ties and possible bridges. Sunday dinner, I said, not at the house, somewhere neutral. Bring Sophie and Dad. We'll talk, really talk. Her smile was genuine, perhaps the first real one I'd seen in years. Thank you, Lily. After she left, I opened the envelope she'd given me. Inside was a cashier's check for my original college fund, plus interest and something else, a photo I'd never seen before. It was me at my high school graduation, giving my valedictorian speech. Someone had captured the exact moment I looked toward my future, young and hopeful, unaware of what was coming. I propped the photo on my desk, next to my latest business award. The contrast between those two moments, the before and after, the thrown-away daughter and the powerful CEO, told a story that went beyond revenge or success. It was a story about believing in yourself when no one else would, about building something so strong that those who broke you have to acknowledge your strength, about creating a legacy that can't be taken away because you earned every single piece of it. Catherine called just then, as if sensing I needed her perspective. How are you doing? She asked. I looked at the photo at the girl who didn't know her world was about to shatter. I'm good, I replied, really good. Because that girl, she didn't just survive. She thrived. Sometimes I realized, the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. About building something so magnificent that those who doubted you have to live in the shadow of your success. And sometimes, if you're lucky, those shadows become bridges to something new, something earned, something real.